City of Stevens Point Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission meeting, recorded May 6, 2025.
We got 6.
All right, the time is 6 o'clock. We'll start the Stevens Point Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission meeting. First up is roll call.
Fisher.
Here.
Guthrie.
Here.
Walderschweiler is excused. Johnson. Here. And Peterson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. The second item is report for the January 28th, 2025 meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission. Discussion, anyone? No? Does anyone want to, what is it?
Motion.
Does anyone want a motion?
Deny.
A motion to accept the minutes from the January meeting.
I'll second.
Perfect.
Forget how to do everything.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? It passes.
There we go.
All right, and number 3 is discussion on the planned walk-roll audit to assist with the 2026 street reconstruction project timeline.
Yeah, so I know we talked about this last year, kind of changing up the way about addressing these walk-roll audits. In the past, we used to perform walk-roll audits after the street was reconstructed. And I think my perspective over the years, as was this commission, was it kind of defeats the purpose in a way of providing true value from this commission about the benefits of a walk-roll audit if the street's already been reconstructed, right? So the new change that we did is doing this well in advance before a road is ever reconstructed and prior to any design work being conducted for that given road segment. So for 2026, obviously the big street reconstruction project planned is Business 51, the north segment and the south segment. 2 additional areas. This would be contingent on capital budget. This being included in the capital budget later this fall would be Center Street from Michigan Ave over to Texas. So 1 block west of Warzala, just for context. And then the second section would be Wilshire Boulevard and North Point Drive, kind of the chunk of land, or chunk of roadway directly west of the Honda dealership, and then stretching down kind of in this inverse U shape just north of Stanley Street. So really the point of this conversation is to, 1, introduce these 2 locations as being the roadways planning that we're going to be planning for reconstruction as early as 2026, but as long as it's included in the budget. And so what I'd like to do is schedule these walk-roll audits sometime, honestly, early summer would be ideal, just because early talks have commenced already with the early design work for these 2 street segments, and that's why I would want to get your folks' feedback and then any other folks from the public who would attend these audits as well to provide their feedback and then send it to staff. So I guess, is there any, I guess before I get to this, any questions, clarifying questions that you folks have about kind of these 2 areas?
I don't really go any of those streets. I don't really know them, so I don't have any questions.
Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to address, and so this, just for some context, I'll talk about a little bit later for the countywide bike ped plan and some of the walk-roll audits that are planned later this month. But this was a corridor that was initially talked about for the countywide bike ped plan. Ultimately, it didn't make the cut. But when we were discussing this road segment, we also did include basically if you follow where my cursor is on the screen, this little chunk of Texas Avenue, and then also this chunk of Jefferson Street directly north of Warzala's plant, and then kind of taking Pinecrest all the way up to Highway 10. So my question so the reason why we were initially talking about including these segments as well was, for starters, for this chunk of Jefferson Street, Alder Guthrie has I'm sure you can attest, the conversation about pedestrian connectivity was talked about when Rosala was seeking the rezoning of this property before our Plan Commission a few months back. And then the stretch of Pinecrest leading up to Highway 10, that's been talked about ample times over the last couple of years, especially about really the difficulties for folks who want to use public transit, folks who want to bike or walk to, say, Metro Market, and there's really no accommodations within our street infrastructure to support those users. So I guess first question is, for the walk roll audit, for this walk roll audit, would you rather focus strictly on the Center Street corridor, or would you like, or are you curious about extending the length of the audit to include the area by Rosala and then Pinecrest leading up to Highway 10? I ask this just because it is, if we do extend the length of this audit, you know, it would be a lengthier route in terms of miles. So if there's any hesitation, then by all means, I'm not adamant that I'd like to include this. So
I would defer to Director Badoon between the north segment and the south segment of Business 51. Even getting a couple extra street projects other than that done seems like a reach in terms of capital and staff. If there's no chance that we would touch as a crew any of those additional spaces.
these two you're meaning?
Yeah, the addition of Texas and Pinecrest, et cetera.
Oh, just to clarify, these portions would not be reconstructed. Sorry, I
Right.
forgot to say this. So these segments won't be reconstructed. These would be intended merely for planning purposes for some other smaller projects.
And so where I was going is that if we're not going to be reconstructing them, it stands to reason that any sort of audit would be sort of moot or stale by the time that any sort of conversation about those intersections came up, and it should be refreshed and done anew by the time they actually talk about doing it. So unless you can see a strategic reason to include it, I don't think it makes sense. I think we should do it in line with money and project and staff to attend to the problems that are identified.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, so Jefferson Street going all the way down to Iverson Park isn't being looked at by,
Correct. It won't be reconstructed.
but it isn't being looked at by the other countywide plan either?
It is being, so it is being talked about in relation to the countywide bike ped plan, and specifically the intersection where Pinecrest hooks up onto Highway 10. That has been talked about more so in relation to some efforts that the Village of Park Ridge is looking or is requesting about some changes in speed limits for that corridor, for that chunk of Highway 10 that falls within their jurisdiction. They've been advocating for lowering the speed limit. I believe, don't quote me exactly how much, but maybe 5-10 miles per hour. But yes, it will be included as part of the bike ped plan.
Okay, well, I guess it's not like a deal breaker for me, but I do think there is a bus stop right over there, and I think in a way it would still be good to look at like bike access, pedestrian access, and how that bus stop overall works in the network for people to get around.
Okay. Carolyn? Adam?
I have no opinion.
Same.
Okay.
I'm trying to visualize that spot.
I'm just.
I've walked it a
both
few
make a good
times
point.
to see the bus stop because people have brought it up to me before, so.
There are lots of problems here. If we include Texas and Pinecrest and segments of Jefferson, there are myriad things that we can identify. My question to staff is, what will we do with the problems that we identify in the next year or two?
Honestly, the biggest thing would be prioritization. What's going to have the biggest bang for your buck, given obviously financials are, surplus of funds are limited. So trying to prioritize of the issues that exist, what should be a priority. In the case of the chunk of land north of Warzala, should there be a development proposal that goes before the plan commission, it'd be there'd be added weight if the commission during the walk roll audit says, hey, we've looked at this on a street view level, we really think you as a developer should incorporate X, Y, and Z as part of the site design. That's one option. And then, we've talked internally over the last year or so about public transit accommodations for Metro Market. We've talked about potentially adding a bus stop more closer to the entrance for Metro Market. There are some challenges in relation to the flow of traffic within the parking lot, but that's been discussed. So, like I said, I'm indifferent, to be honest. I merely bring this up because it's close by, but if there's hesitations, by all means, I'm not worried about it.
I'll defer to you. If you think that there will be value in us reviewing it and putting forward comments, I'll be happy to do it. It will be a long audit, and so we might break it into like the kind of urban-y, right, Metro Market area, and then a separate one, right, if it ends up being just too long for folks. But I'll defer to you. If you think it would be valuable to have our opinion on that, if there's nothing on the schedule, I worry that anything we put forward just isn't of use in time for it to be valuable, but whatever.
Well, my opinion is if the development or the developers haven't done, they're not doing it right now, right?
They haven't submitted a formal plan set.
Okay.
Correct.
So I guess if we audit it and see these things they should do or they shouldn't do, they can use that while they're designing it. Use our input.
Could be
Even
like-
if there isn't money in the budget to do any reconstruction or anything right now, or time or whatever, or any of the above. I still think our opinion, or like for them to design it and have our input into the design before they design it. Because if it's already designed, it's kind of like, oh, well, they should have told us before we did it.
And then in relation to the scheduling, so I'm shooting for, really since it's May the 6th is already, shooting for the month of June to conduct both audits. These are going to be 2 separate days, right? That'd be uber intense to include both of these on the same day, the same afternoon or evening.
Yeah, that's not
Can't expect
happening.
that. So if you know of any schedule conflicts during the month of June, feel free to let me know now. I will for sure reach out to you folks separately over the next couple days just to square away a day and time. But if there's any scheduling conflicts that in the month of June where you can't be available.
Are you talking about just weeknights?
I think the
Should be
week
okay.
of June 9th, I think I'll be gone that whole week.
June 9th.
Yeah.
Okay.
College visit
Ooh,
and dance competition.
congrats.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, so great question, Alder Guthrie. So I am planning for evening hours, preferably, somewhere 5, 6 o'clock, give or take.
On a weeknight.
And a weeknight, yes. Not Friday night.
That should work. Do you think the 2-part thing would work, or it would have to be all like if people want to drop off after Center Street?
Yeah, they're more than welcome to duck out really at any point through the route. So.
Sure.
Okay. I guess otherwise then I'll reach out to you folks over the next couple days to finalize the dates for these. I'm going to try to shoot for having these 2 audits not back-to-back days, but pretty close to one another, just so it's fresh on everybody's mind. But
I hope you can come, Dean.
I don't know if he's on anymore.
I think he just dropped off.
Yeah, I don't see him anymore. Okay. Chair, it is back over to you.
Oh, we're ready for number 3?
Yes.
Discussion on, number 4, sorry. Review of the Stevens Point 2024 report card offered by the League of American Bicyclists.
Yes, so this is a good point of reflection to see where we are as a community, standing as it relates to all bicycle-related matters, and especially the value of this is that it's being done by an outside entity. So as folks, I may have mentioned this to you folks last year. So within the charter establishing this commission, there's some of the more mundane language, committee composition, rules of the commission, and whatnot. Really the more meat of that charter is specific goals, specific action items that this commission should embark on. And one of these is to obtain status through the League of American Bicyclists, and then specifically strive for a gold level standing. So in 2016 was the first time that we applied for this designation from the league. We obtained a bronze status. 2020 we applied and obtained silver status. For 2024, my intention originally was to apply for gold. However, there were changes in the league's criteria in about early to mid 2023, where they struck out the enforcement provision within their guidelines and replaced it with equity and inclusion. And I felt just because of the rather significant change that we kind of needed to take a step back and really have 2024 serve as that baseline to see where we are at right now, and ultimately shoot for gold within 2028. So what I'm going to do is provide just a quick overview of the results that the league provided to us. So again, the 5 criteria that the league is measuring the city's standing on are, as shown on the screen: engineering, education, encouragement, evaluation, and planning, and then the last one being equity and accessibility. So here, the second column, you can see the percentage of points that the city has accumulated for each category, and then the maximum amount that could be awarded for each category. So I think you can see big takeaways. In terms of how much you could obtain, clearly the area that needs improvement would be really equity and accessibility. In a way, I'm not surprised, given that's just a whole new criteria, and we haven't done a lot of efforts to improve our standing in this criteria when compared to some of the other more visible areas like engineering. Speaking of engineering, that's arguably our best graded criteria, which makes sense given the length of roadway miles we have that are serviced by bicycle infrastructure. Stepping into the specifics, you can see early on in the report, they do break down each of those 5 categories into different subcategories, and you can see again how many points that we as a city accumulated relative to the total amount that we as a city can receive. As you can see here, obviously the biggest slice in the pie in terms of points you could get is the bicycle network itself. How many roadway miles make up our bicycle network? You can see that's the most amount of points that we have, but that's also the biggest chunk of the pie. So in terms of any efforts that are done in the future to improve our standing as it relates to engineering, this engineering section, really the bicycle network component of it is your biggest bang for your buck. Second category is education. This was one of our areas, frankly, that needs some more improvement on. Really the biggest areas where we can get graded on are both youth and adult bicycle education, and we fare relatively equally amongst both age cohorts. Arguably, as you can see, there's a greater priority for having youth education versus that of adults, which you can make an argument as to what's more effective, but needless to say, still work to be done on those 2 categories. Encouragement rather, the third category. Again, the biggest area focuses more on bicycle culture and promotion. So how do we foster a community? How do we foster relations in our community that supports and uplifts folks who would want to use bicycles as a mode of transportation for whatever means, if it's for leisure, if it's for employment, if it's for taking care of household necessities like groceries. So you can see, again, that's the biggest slice of the pie. And really the biggest area that we can improve on going forward. That and really access to the supplementals that's associated with biking. So having easy access for folks who want to get a helmet. Are those accommodations available? Are easy accommodations for high-vis gear for folks who would want to bike during non-lit hours? Fourth category would be the evaluation and planning. And here, honestly, my biggest takeaway is that there's a lot of overlap between the two. I can understand why they emphasize the staffing level and the committee structure that's associated with bicycle planning. Personally, I would put a little bit more weight into really these next three categories after that: the public engagement through the planning process, your actual planning work and your implementation work, and then the evaluation work that's done after any long-range plans are achieved. I think the area that's the most disheartening for me as a practicing planner is really the implementation and the evaluation of any long-term bicycle plans. You can see, again, biggest areas, biggest slices of the pie, and arguably our worst rated categories. So I think that speaks volumes to really the benefit with the work that's being done currently with updating the countywide bike ped plan, but also adds a little bit of an onus on us to really prioritize the key recommendations from that bike ped plan and really work our darndest to try to make those recommendations become reality. And then the last one, equity and accessibility. I remember when I was filling out the application, I thought, again, that there was a lot of overlap. You can see here there's not a lot of specification behind incorporating equity and accessibility principles. They just merely break it down into each of the four aforementioned categories: engineering all the way through evaluation and planning. But I think really the big component that we as a commission, we as a broader community could work on over the next couple of years is incorporating those principles within any policies and plans, right? That's arguably the easiest that can be achieved, easiest that can be done, and you're lumping in some of these other line items in doing that work as well, right? In order to create some equity and accessibility-based plans and policies, those plans, those policy recommendations that you're creating, they're set forth by data that we're receiving, by goals that are aspired by this commission and folks from the public. Last thing, our last two slides, League does provide a litany of different recommendations, large and small. This is just a snippet. I'm not going to go over every one of them, but really the skinny of it is that there's a lot of recommendations. There's some that's easy to implement goals, and then there's some that frankly is going to take a lot of time and, most importantly, physical ability, physical with an F, ability to make that happen. Then lastly, you can see in here there was a survey. This was required from the League where, as part of our application, we had to submit their survey for members of the public to submit, really for the League to get a sense from the community as to where they feel we stand on certain issues in certain areas as it relates to bicycling here in Point. This is taken on one of the pages. This is really the big three findings as part of the survey. And what I think was really timely was this last part. So what are the top three changes you'd like to see your local government make in the community. The first one was improving existing bike lanes to protected bike lanes. You can see the delineator posts that were installed about 2 weeks ago along Michigan and Water Street. I thought that was pretty timely that those were installed at the same time, or around the same time when folks expressed this as a high priority issue. So I provide kind of this quick background, or this quick summary about the league's finding, because really to have an initial conversation with this commission moving forward, right? Ultimately, it's going to be your charter, your responsibility in a way, along with myself, of course, to improve our standing in each of these areas going forward, and really setting a path forward for the next 4 years. So I guess to start, are there any questions or takeaways that you folks had when reviewing the recommendations from the league, reviewing the survey results? Any observations or comments?
I'll just say that I'm having difficulty conceptualizing of the how. So more bike paths is identified here, and in the last few months, there was a major intersection that was identified in the capital plan for our city that is aligned with a major intersection of bike paths, and we asked, as part of that, putting stoplights at that intersection, we should probably, it's a really important bike path area or intersection that's used really heavily by bike commuters. Should we be thinking about how the lights might also be inclusive of bikers, and should we look at a green safety box or some of those other sort of typical mechanisms? And the director of streets, his response was, no, we're just signalizing the intersection. That's not my plan to do anything with the bike path that is right next to it. So I'm like, okay, well, how do we make a plan for the city about where paths and bike infrastructure need to be improved for connectivity, so that we can point to it and say, hey, if you do anything near that, we really need to be involved in the design and the funding on the front side? Is that the method? Because asking after something's approved did not work for me this time. And nothing against the director, right? He's got his task and his budget to approve that task. But do you have insight as a staffer in terms of, okay, if we want to improve the number two thing, more bike paths, and number one, improve existing bike lanes to protect, that feels like a lost opportunity, right? Do you remember what that intersection is? So it's the one right south of the viaduct on Brolowski, where the Inclusa and the old Delta Dental. So
Coy.
Is it Coy?
Is it Coy?
No, it's on Patch.
You're saying south of Old Delta?
Yeah, I think it turns into something else technically, but yes.
Oh, Industrial Park Road.
Industrial
and
Park
Hoover.
Road,
Okay.
yep. And that's, so when people are biking to Skyward and other places, like there's a path that goes right there.
Yes.
And so that intersection is being set up with signals. It's like a $500,000 project. It's all designed and stuff, and and the response was, no, this has nothing to do with bikes and bike paths or like the bikeability of that intersection, which made me say, no, but that's a really important intersection for bike commuters.
Was that one that we counted on before?
I don't believe that intersection we have.
And will we count on the road or will we count on the path? Right?
Yeah.
But the point isn't to help me understand how we mechanize number one and number two here, and get out in front of those projects being approved without the inclusion of a major biking intersection because a road problem is identified. Like, how do we get out in front of that and make sure we're at the table when critical intersections or biking infrastructure is in the geography, is in the region of a project that's happening?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of what Adam is doing with his walk roll audits, if I'm not wrong, is to get out before the project is designed fully. So I think that's like the right path, but this one just didn't get ahead of it. We didn't do it enough, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yes, I'll expand on that more in that I'm biased. I'm a planner. I like to plan. But with that said, though, yes, some of the commentary that you provided, Alder Guthrie, would be addressed through the walk roll audits that we do every year preceding a planned street reconstruction. With that said, I do think it would be in the city's best interest to establish some sort of prioritization for areas that we should emphasize for protected bike lanes going forward. For example, there's certain, the reason why we as a city and working with the county for those protected bike lanes with the SS4A project was that they're already designed as such. They have the bike lane plus the 2 to 3 foot wide strip. A lot of other bike lanes that bike lanes that we have are either sharrows or just not painted whatsoever. And so I think it would be in the city's best interest to really establish that prioritization of what areas do we want to include protected bike lanes going forward, what areas have the necessary right-of-way width where you could accommodate a protected bike lane. Some areas just don't have enough pavement width to support that, or even right-of-way width to support that if an expansion would occur. So that's what I would say, at least for number one, for the protected bike lanes. The more paths, I think there's a few ways that you could go about it. If you're addressing goal number 2 here from a safety aspect, that's going to be different than if you're coming into it from what are areas that have a high traffic, that have higher traffic of bike users versus others. Those should be the areas that you prioritize, right? So that's a long way of saying it. I guess it depends on what perspective you're coming into this goal of how we should improve having more bike paths. Personally, I would say areas where there's a higher safety risk and areas where there are more bike users along a corridor or along a crossing, that should be prioritized.
I would add for purposes of connectivity.
Yes.
Right, for the bicycle network, like, that should be prioritized. Like, if, like you're saying, if it's not considered, you could be cutting off that network. And something I was thinking about recently is some people saying they don't see people on the bike paths, but I see them in front of my house all the time, and I think it's because there's more connectivity of the network, where maybe where they are, it's just like a bike path standing on its own, not connecting, not leading, not going anywhere people are going, maybe, I don't know.
And I think this is, again, good timing with the countywide bike ped plan being produced as we speak. I'll have an update later on in the agenda as it relates to the timeline on that. But what I see as a good step going forward is this draft bike ped plan is brought before this body for review. At that time, it would be a really good opportunity to provide comments as to, hey, Vanderwall, you've identified these 20 plus locations where additional bike accommodations should be provided. We as a commission think we should prioritize X, Y, and Z as top priority for the city going forward. Because ultimately, any plan has to include the implementation section. How are we actually going to achieve the recommendations included in that plan? It would be this commission's role as a main stakeholder in providing that commentary and what's the priority? What are the priority areas going forward? Education, I'll touch on that in a little bit, but.
Well, I guess I don't really understand zoning the best, but would that include the new zoning plan at all?
For bike lanes, no.
Bike paths, bike
lanes, bike paths, no. Unless it's a larger development where you're having like internal sidewalks or internal bike paths, then potentially, but really no, it wouldn't be addressed through a zoning code, right?
I don't know. You tell me.
Good question, though. Good question. So I guess to kind of put a pin on, put a bow on the next steps forward path, really the bike ped plan is going to be the key component of how do we address the planning, evaluation, implementation phase of implementation sections of the League report card. The second thing I want to talk about is the education component of it. That's something that is identified in this commission's charter as something you ought to work on to promote bicycling and pedestrian education. And one of the areas I think this was a recommendation from the League that they included, was they noticed that we lack education, driver education. We do some work as it relates to education amongst bike users and pedestrians, but less so amongst motorists. And so that's the kind of the low-hanging fruit that I see for efforts that this commission could do going forward. So I guess, is that something that you folks concur with as, yes, I think this is an opportunity that we as a commission could do going forward? And if so, are there any kind of certain deliverables, certain actions you think, oh, I really would be interested if we do X for an educational outreach?
I could see us writing this script for an early spring informational video that goes out on the city's social media to educate motorists. Hey, you're going to be sharing the road more often with cyclists, and you should know they need 3 feet, and you should know that don't wave them through the intersection when you have the right of way. It creates danger. And I'm sure we could think of like the 100 things, but it could be really positive and friendly. Like the roads are, yes, actually bikers are supposed to use the roads instead of the sidewalks because it's safer, and this is what we need for motorists and or for everyone. Kind of very similar to the look twice for motorcycles as spring is coming up. So I feel like we could help with the script for that. We'd know some of the key rules or concerns of the community and ask community media to help us put together just like a 2-minute video demonstrating some of those best practices.
I totally get that and agree with it, but there's so many people that actually, I mean, in the whole grand scheme of the population of adults of Portage County or Stevens Point, they don't visit the city webpage that often. Not a high
I was
percent.
thinking of going out on that dreaded social media.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Dreaded social media.
Yeah, the dreaded social media.
Where the people are.
Yeah, and maybe the mayor does like something on the news, right? There are a few different channels. So once it's out, there are a few different methods or audiences where it can be pushed out. But I don't know, like a positive, friendly video that's timed with next spring feels like an obtainable educational thing that people might use. Like, I can't imagine sending a pamphleture and having someone read it, but I could imagine them like while scrolling on their phone watching a brief video. But that's just my perspective. What do you all?
No, I
think that's
agree.
good.
That's better. I was thinking too narrow with the website.
Oh, so yeah, on some page on the website where no one would ever.
I'll say I have seen bicycle education as poster on our city buses, so why not driver education as posters on our city buses?
Oh, that's a great idea.
And there's kind of a follow-up that I have to that for the SS4A update that
Oh,
I think
connects.
connects to that. Yes. Any other thoughts on certain educational initiatives? Obviously, this month is Walker Bike to School. Technically, I think it's a month-long initiative, but there's a particular week where that stands out, or that week, a particular week where that event kind of beholds to. But that's always an opportunity if we want to incorporate or work with the certain school or the school district to focus on driver education when you're approaching a school zone. It's kind of the action that anytime when you're driving through a school zone, you got to be slower, especially when kids are present, right? But that's always an opportunity. That's always a venue that this commission could.
Right. And that might be good like in the fall at the start of school too.
Yeah, That's a good point, because I know really in a lot of areas, the first week or two, there's typically higher police patrol surrounding schools for speed. So, okay. Any other comments or thoughts about education, or just broadly speaking about the survey results and the league's comments in the package?
Well, it's a lot to digest and could take like a lot of conversation ideas, and so I don't know, like the starting point's even like hard.
Yeah, so good point. Very good point. So I said this before and I'll say it again. The countywide bike ped plan, when this commission has the opportunity to review it, I think that's going to be the big first step that this commission could do to improve our standing here. So identifying the first two goals on the bottom of page 7, how are those incorporated into the bike ped plan, and establishing some prioritization in the implementation section for that. When we talk about the equity and accessibility components, it'd be a good idea for this commission to examine the recommendations from an equity, from an accessibility standpoint, right? You folks know the lay of the land better than the consultants that we're working with. Not a knock on them, but they're looking at it from a different perspective, right? You folks drive, walk, bike these areas all the time. So looking at the recommendations in the plan from an equity and accessibility component, I think would be a really good first step.
Okay.
And then the education, there'll be some, it's going to be a little bit less heavy on the educational piece for the bike ped plan, but that's another opportunity to look at how do you incorporate some of the recommendations, how do you implement some of the recommendations over the next 10 to 20 years.
So are they 1,000 friends? Is that what they're called? Or 10,000 friends? I think they, 1,000? I was right the first time, all right. I think they did like a survey of the area and included equity, remember, in their like data?
Yes.
But that was a while ago, so is that like useful to us at this point?
Yes. However, naturally it becomes less pertinent, less useful the farther back you're reaching.
I guess to me then the first step would be collecting new data.
For sure.
What neighborhoods, or where they're going. I don't know.
I think there's things about interconnected infrastructure and things that are big and hard, but there's some low-hanging fruit in here, Adam. Page 10 of our packet, right? We've talked about improving bike parking downtown where the city owns parking lots, right? Like we've talked about updating a bike or parking ordinance that increases for new residential, right, downtown housing, especially increased infrastructure. So, there's some recommendations in text on pages 10 and 11 of the packet that I'm like, this is low-hanging fruit. And might really, there's a lot of bang for the buck. Like, my bike is tied to a tree when I go to Ruby's in the morning. There's no bike parking.
This will be a really timely conversation
Yeah.
for the next item. So it's great that we're having this conversation.
Yeah, but so it looks like there are big, difficult things like changing culture and infrastructure that's very expensive and needs so much planning. There's also some really low-hanging fruit. So that's exciting. Like a balance of both feels appropriate.
Sure.
Reading through all the comments of the survey, it didn't make the top 3, but I think it would be number 4. A lot of people mentioned bike parking downtown.
They did.
Yeah.
And that's
It's not just because I took the survey 20 times.
Awesome. Any other comments? If not,
Should we just like digest and try to think of things and like a homework on this, like prioritize ourselves, or?
yeah, for sure. If there's
Email
other recommendations that you feel would be best suited for the city that's not identified by the league, yes, by all means, send that over to me. as I mentioned before, reviewing the draft countywide bike ped plan is going to be the next big step.
And sort of using this as a lens through which to see and to influence that draft.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess my last question that goes with it, they talk about the Safe Routes to School program. I guess I don't know where we're at with that at this point, but I know we had one and we were kind of working on it.
Yes.
recently.
So some of the engineering the engineering recommendations as part of the 2014 Safe Routes to School plan will be updated as part of this new countywide bike ped plan. You know, as folks know, the Safe Routes to School plan is more than just more focused than just engineering. Focuses more on just engineering related matters. So those components, the education, the encouragement pieces would still be left unaddressed.
Okay, so we should work with like the school board or something?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. And there'll be some more updates that I'll have on that. in a little
Okay.
bit, So.
I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, Adam,
Yeah.
but I think I saw in my email the other day, yesterday, something about a webinar for the Safe Routes to School plan.
That I sent you?
No,
Oh.
that whoever it's through, I had a web, like, America Walks or something.
Oh, could be.
Whoever
I know
does
they.
the Safe Routes to School plan, they're having a webinar, an educational webinar.
I didn't get that
always
one.
forget to forward you stuff.
You're good.
Forward me.
Cool.
Okay.
We're all good.
Yeah. Ready for the next one?
Yes.
All right, number 5, discussion on downtown bicycle parking and accommodations. Roll right into that one.
Yeah, yes. So, reason I'm bringing up this conversation is, one, this has been talked about internally over the last couple months about, you know, we identify the issues that exist about the lack of bike parking that exists in certain parts of the downtown, and I know, Nana, you've sent me pictures in the past of areas where a sidewalk is littered with bicycles because there's no other opportunity, there's no other locations for bikes to be parked while somebody's frequenting a restaurant or a bar or whatever establishment. So on the screen, identified locations where we currently have bike parking accommodations, that's signified by the red stars. I think the biggest takeaway you could see is Main Street and the north half of the square. There's at least a equal representation of bike parking throughout that corridor, which, you know, coming from the outside looking in makes sense, right? There's a lot more commercial establishments along Main Street versus that of Clark Street, so that's why Main Street should be prioritized in terms of bike parking over Clark Street. Needless to say, however, the fact that there's none along Clark Street is quite eye-opening in a way. So I'm having this conversation with you folks in part because with those internal conversations, there's been grant opportunities that's been identified to help fund the installation of new bike parking accommodations within the downtown. The city's membership with AARP Wisconsin enables us to apply for, there's about 3 different grant programs that comes to mind where we could ask for up to several tens of thousands of dollars worth of bike parking that we could install. So I say this in that you see on the screen where the current bike parking accommodations are. Are there certain locations elsewhere in the downtown that that screams to you that says, yes, here is where
Yes, Adam.
where we should install more?
Yes,
Yes, there are. What are we talking about when we're talking about downtown? Let's define that. So Riverfront Art, I consider part of downtown, and it has a bike parking, but that's not starred. So what's your definition of downtown before I get out of range?
Great question. So my definition would be Piffner Park, and then Portage would be the northernmost extent. down to Union.
Then we don't have everything marked, Adam.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, that's a good point, because I think when I was drawing this together, I was just thinking of center point, down to the courthouse, kind of this area. But for sure, if you can make an argument that this, this area, Piffner and Northside Yard,
Well, I'm
MAJ's.
happy to start wrapping off ideas. I just wanted to notify, like, not everything's marked as it is.
Correct.
We need something, not north of the band shell, but south of the band shell that services Levitt. Everyone's bikes are just strewn on the ground.
On the trees.
And yep, tied up to trees or put across benches. So something near the what's it called, the Peace Garden, the
Cultural Commons.
The Cultural Commons. Something north of the Cultural Commons, south of the band shell is an idea I have.
I think they have a bike rack right there right now by the Commons.
Do they?
I think it's new, isn't it? No?
There's a bench. I mean, the bench that was
maybe there's
installed
a
a
bench.
year
If
or
there's
two.
new bike parking there, I haven't seen it yet, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's needed.
I thought there was bike parking down there now.
The bike parking on the north side of the square is in ample. I'm also tied up to trees regularly during like farmer's market or a Friday evening out. So there are stars, but it's in ample. And Father Fats and Ruby's in that whole like vibey place. I need something over there. I'll yield.
I guess my question is, what kind of bike parking is it? Is it covered?
Well, so we could, I mean, as part of any grant application, we could include that in the narrative. Naturally, by doing so, you're going to limit the number of locations that could be included.
Sure.
Through the grant request.
But we could improve existing infrastructure, like all of the bike racks that are just southeast of Goose by the by where the bike,
Yeah.
there's a large space right there that would be ideal for covered parking, especially if people are biking to the bus stop and then getting on a bus.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great point, because, there's certain existing bike racks that frankly meet the design criteria that we talked about last time. Some of them don't, so much so that you'd arguably be starting from scratch in terms of that location with new bike parking accommodations.
Yeah,
But
I think the ones that are by the Polish art by process, I think they're like schoolhouse racks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One comment that I actually loved in the survey, somebody pointed out, I think it's true, that there's no bike parking at the post office.
Yes.
Yeah, and that, I think that is problematic.
There used to be, and they removed it.
Okay.
They removed the rack. It hasn't been there for about the last year, and I went and told them at the counter that I really missed it. But yeah, the federal post office does not have bike parking right now. They used to.
That's
I don't know why. You would think that would be.
I mean, I live
easy,
close, so
too.
I usually walk, so I didn't notice, but.
No, there's enough bikers that I've witnessed over the years that bike past the post office all the time.
Yeah.
So, makes sense.
But I mean, like parking out there, I didn't notice.
Yeah. Okay, any other locations, at least to assist me through future grant application submittals?
Yeah, I agree with the was that Ruby parking lot? And that also kind of goes, if it's like in a certain area in the parking lot, it can also be accessible from like Galaxy, and a dance studio I think is right there, and then the square is close.
I know there's some, or there used to be some by the library. I don't go there very often, but when you go in the back, there's that parking lot by Bill's and the Rose House or whatever. Is there any in that by that parking lot there?
There's a lot of bike parking out front on Main Street of
Right,
the
but is
library,
there in
but
the
I'm
back?
not that I can think of, but I'll be honest, I guess when I bike with traffic down Main coming from east of, right? Like I'm not coming from the Clark side, I'm coming from the Main Street side, so I wouldn't even look for it back there, so I'm not sure.
Because I don't like it, but I was just thinking that might be a good buy.
Yeah, whether it's in the library back parking lot or the parking lot closer to the river from Ruby's, like something that services that major intersection
I know
of
there
Father
was
Fats and the library.
Right, I know there was, I haven't been to the library in a while.
It's in the front.
Yeah, there's
There used to
enough
be
in the
one
front.
in the back too,
Oh,
Yeah,
but I'm not sure.
I don't think there's one back there, no.
I can't picture any in the back. Could be wrong.
I would say that I think it's is it Moose's Lodge that's down
Yeah.
there? Yeah,
yeah.
there's like a card show there every month that's like very popular. You know, lots of young people going to get cards, and I can imagine a lot of them are biking and walking.
Oh, at the Elks.
Elks.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
Yeah.
where I was thinking.
Any other locations that scream to you?
I'll just say that as a biker, I will walk several blocks for covered bike parking. So like if we put in a grant for one central downtown covered parking, I bet people would really use it and be happy to walk a block or two to a restaurant, to whatever, compared to parking right out front of somewhere. So if we have enough space somewhere and there's grant dollars,
Yeah.
covered parking is huge, especially in the spring when the weather's all goofy. No one likes a wet seat.
That's what I'm thinking. I'll have to think about the ideal location, but Ruby's would probably be
Well, or
a good central
like,
location. with
no,
room.
even the
Goose.
northeast corner of that intersection of Clark and what's the north-south?
Either Strong's or Third or Ellis.
What extends from the square?
Oh, that's Second Street. That little chunk, yeah, right by.
Oh, sorry. No, is it Ellis? Is the next one to the east Ellis?
Yeah, so this would be Second. This would be Third.
Oh, third. Okay.
Yep.
So on the
And then
on
Ellis
the
is
north
right here.
on the northeast corner of like in the outlot of Adam.
One of the.
You know what I'm saying? Like it services the library. It services down, right? The square is only a block away. It's land we own. It's, right? Like if we could do, like, have you ever seen that parking lot full? No. If we could put covered bike parking in such a central location and services to the Clark Street businesses that could really use some more visibility. It doesn't need to be right on the square. It doesn't need to be right on Main Street. Just like a parking ramp. Once you know where it is, if it's tucked behind a Main Street, right? Like you'll get used to using it as a biker. If it's covered, it'll be really attractive. Covered in ample spots. I'm so excited. I'm standing.
No, that's good. I kind of like that spot too, because while I'm interested in the spot that's by the bus area right now, we did already talk about like including bike parking with the new bus system that would be going through there. I forget what it's called.
Transit Center.
The transit center. So I don't know if we would just be
I think we could do
doubling
both.
down.
I think
I love it.
the nice thing about the outlot of the library is
That's what
we
I
don't
mean,
have
yeah.
to wait to determine when a transit center is being developed, and we like
Right, exactly.
And I think downtown could really use both.
And it's kind of in the middle also.
Yeah.
Okay, no, this has been super helpful for me. I think the first grant opportunity I'll shoot for would be the smaller dollar big impact grant through ARP. That's a recurring monthly grant that they offer for. Very nice, yeah. So quick turnaround. I mean, it's something that's intended to be completed within, I think it's 2 to 3 months, but for something like this, it's relatively easy to implement. So.
How often can you be rewarded that grant?
Once, well, for sure once a year. I don't know
Okay.
if there's ever been communities who have been awarded multiple times.
Okay.
2+
Well,
year interval.
maybe
What's a
we'll
low
do the
dollar
first.
amount?
So the minimum you could ask for is 1,000. The maximum is a few thousand.
Oh, okay, so probably not covered infrastructure.
I don't know how much that runs.
Too much, concrete's expensive these days.
Yeah.
Labor.
Yeah. Okay. Unless there's any other comments, I think this has been helpful for me.
Thanks, Adam, thanks for working on this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You'll hear more. I mean,
Can't wait.
you'll hear from it again once
I'm
it
gonna
goes
park
to.
someday at Ruby's legally at a bike parking spot and just like do my little dance.
I agree.
You'll hear more about it because I'll have to submit it to Finance and Council for the authorization to apply.
Can't wait to advocate.
All right.
Hey, that rhymed.
Number 6, updates on the Portage County Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan rewrite. Walk audits planned for May, draft plan, and demonstration activities.
All right, a few updates. So first off, with the walk audits, there's 3 walk audits that are scheduled this month to assist in the development of this countywide bike ped plan. 2 of them are in the cities. In the city, one would be in the village of Amherst, the one on May 19th. So the one on May 15th, that'll be next week, Thursday, I believe. Correct, next week, Thursday. So meeting location would be at the County Annex Building. The route will focus more on the east half of the downtown along Main Street, Clark Street, Division Street corridor, kind of that. Actually, I'll pull up this map. Kind of this general area, just for context. And then the second one in the city on May 22nd, they'll focus on the route connecting Madison Elementary to Spash, so taking Maria, 2nd Street, and then North Point, kind of that S-shaped route. So
What are you doing over there?
we did
Or
Walker
was that
Street.
Maria?
We did Maria east of 2nd. We did that.
Before the roundabout, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, maybe about a year, 2 years ago, maybe.
Years ago.
No. So obviously, I can't force you folks to attend, but strongly encourage you to, if you can, attend one of these or both of these. If you do plan on attending, just please let me know. So if I need to post a notice of quorum for this commission, that I have.
I'm planning
Heads up
on
to
the
do so.
22nd.
Okay. And if you folks need more time to think about it, that's fine too. Just
Yeah,
shoot me an
Well,
email.
that's on my
for those.
schedule for work.
Okay.
I'm planning it.
Okay. So that's first update. Second update is draft plan. So I had a call actually today at 3 with the folks from Vanderwall, where they provided an update about the development of the bike ped plan. So the timeline got delayed slightly in part because we wanted to do the walk roll audits in early April we were shooting for, but as members recall, that latter half of March and early April got a little funky with weather. So we had to push off the timing for those walk audits, and ultimately these audits will be instructive for the development of this plan. So these walk roll audits have to happen first. The plan is sometime in early to mid-June, the draft plan will be finalized. It'll be sent to myself and a few other folks between the city, county, and village of Plover for initial review. I would suspect it'll be brought before this commission for review either late June through mid-July, somewhere along that timeline. So I'll keep you posted when I get more details on exact timing, but that's kind of the rough idea. Demonstration activities, we referenced this earlier, the 3 locations where demonstration activities are currently occurring. Michigan Ave between Dixon and Pat Street has the protected bike lane. Water Street from Quick Trip down to Riverview Ave, that also has a protected bike lane. And then the temporary curb extension along 4th Ave and Isidore.
Can I make a comment about those?
Yes.
It's disappointing to me that there's no information at the demonstration temporary demonstration facility that's right next to my work, a lot of people are like, what is this? And I like, a sign would have been nice to say, we're practicing safety, something to, with branding of the county and the
QR
grant
code.
and stuff like that. A QR code to show them more. It looks like an extension of the construction that's happening on the northeast corner of that intersection, and I don't think people understand what it's there for.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. So this week, for a couple days, we do have a few people assigned to canvass students who walk past, students and other community members who walk past that intersection to really gauge their comfortability in crossing the intersection with the curb extension being implemented, to try to get more of that qualitative data to aid in this planning process. So that is going to be planned this week. I do agree with you, Alder Guthrie. There definitely could have been more that we.
Unless it's strategic, like, no, we don't want to tell them what it is. We just want them to experience it and see if it's helpful, and then ask them if it's helpful. Maybe there's a reason we're not telling them what it is.
It's been on the news.
I mean, yeah. So
But the typical 19-year-old isn't watching.
I know, but I mean, it's not, I don't think, I'm just saying it's not a secret, like.
No, I'm not
Call it.
suggesting it's
Yeah.
a secret. I'm just saying a lot of people are walking by it and have no idea what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did that. So that was intentionally done in terms of educating the public that these demonstration activities will be happening. We purposely didn't disclose that information until they were installed, so that it kind of made them realize right on the spot, whoa, the feel of driving or walking or biking through this corridor feels a lot different now. I got to react differently, right? So that, in conjunction with the canvassing work that will be done at 4th and Isidore, that will be the opportunity to collect more of that quantitative or more of that qualitative data to see really what's working and what's not.
Okay.
So
Get there before graduation.
that's the plan. This week is the plan.
I had something brought up to me that I didn't know how to answer, and it's really actually a good question. It might be good to be addressed in the motorist education or whatever, but what do you do, like, if you're going in that area and there's an emergency vehicle and you can't pull over to the right?
Okay.
I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, it's only a block long, so go as soon as you can, I guess. But
Good point. Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, at least seeing, personally seeing drivers commute through the protected bike lanes, you could tell there's a differing of perspectives. Some still go some go the same speed limit as they would have pre-delineators being installed. Some, you could tell, are purposely going slow because they feel less comfortable driving through, which.
And also, the one I go every day going to work, I work at like where, I would say the old Chapco, that was a long time ago. But I work behind there, so I got Water Street, that right in there between Quick Trip and
Riverview.
HH, whatever. There's when you're heading, when I'm going home, so you're heading, I don't know which direction, south, I think.
I don't know where home is.
Yeah.
Towards Whiting?
Towards, yeah.
South.
South. When you're headed south, there's that, I pull out of like the driveway for Quick Trip and I go along there. And then when I get at the light, I know, because you go to the right a little bit to get the correct lane, so you go straight. I noticed that last post thing was ripped off.
Yeah, I noticed
I
that
thought that was
yesterday
funny. I
at
was
the
like,
end of the day.
Yeah, I was like, ooh. When I went home yesterday, I saw that. I was like, I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. Well, driving on that road myself before, I noticed a lot of people will go right much sooner, and I think that keeps them in the correct lane longer, and maybe somebody decided they wanted to go
Or if
sooner
they
like they
haven't.
usually did.
Right.
And then the last update, so the picture on the right-hand side of the screen, these are, these essentially are educational signs talking about bike safety. So this is one example. There's about 10 or 12 different signs in total talking about different educational principles. This is something that was donated to the city from Aspirus through some grant work that they have been working on with the state DOT and the Wisconsin Bike Fed. So literally just got those signs dropped off on my by my office on Friday. So over the next few weeks, the plan is to install these signs throughout various areas here in the city. Plan is to install, kind of mix and match between Green Circle Trail and specific locations in town that have a higher bike traffic. So just wanted to provide that update because this is really touching on the educational component. There's QR codes where folks could pull up certain informational flyers from the Wisconsin Bike Fed talking about the specific educational piece that sign entails. So I thought that's just really great that that would be donated to us from a partnering organization, and is really timely given all the work that's currently been worked on. So, all right, that's all.
No more comments?
Nope.
I guess this meeting is adjourned.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.